Hello, my name is Kirioth, and today we are going to talk about the Games Workshop contrast and paint stuff that has been going around. Admittedly, Games Workshop has been pushing this quite hard. There's been a couple of interesting trailers, we're going to get to see what this stuff actually is at Warhammer Fest, and there's been quite a few theories as to what this could be. It's obviously about painting, it's about getting your models ready for the tabletop, and as I say, there's been a few theories floating around. The idea of an airbrush, maybe, a Citadel branded airbrush, which I would hope they would partner with someone who knew what they were doing for that, but it might not even be that. There's also the idea that perhaps it's some sort of dipping thing, where the name is pretty obvious, you dip the model into whatever it is. Something like that already exists, I gather. There are other companies that make that kind of thing. I don't have any experience with it personally, so I can't really say how effective it is, but that was floated. I saw that theory pop up a few times. But yesterday, I got, and I know Varak got, and I think someone else got as well, a little bit of information from, in my case anyway, someone that I do trust in terms of sources. It's someone who gave me some of the information that I gave out during October, and that person was spot on, and that was also corroborated with someone else who was feeding me a shitload of information during October. So I'm kind of inclined to say that I'm not going to say 100% confirmed this is what it is, but I trust the dude. He's been right in the past, and he's been accurate in the past. So what he's told me is that there is going to be a one coat paint, and you put it on the model, and it's when it dries, it does the recesses. It's like darker in the recesses, and it's lighter on the raised sections of whatever you've painted, be it armor, weapon, skin, whatever. To be honest, that actually does not sound at all far-fetched to me, which is one of the reasons that I'm telling you about it, because we already kind of have that. And if that is what this is, then, to be honest, I'm quite happy about that, because an extension, an expansion of the colours available that can achieve that effect would be really nice, because we do sort of already have something similar to that in the form of the godsend that Games Workshop gave us, which is Hexwraith Flame. It's a fucking great paint. I love this paint. I perhaps overuse it now because I like it that much, and to a certain extent Nighthaunt Gloom as well does a similar thing. And in fact, I do have a couple of models right here to demonstrate that fact. One of which is already dry brushed, and one of which isn't. So this is part of the Death Guard side of the Dark Imperium box. I wanted to say Dark Guard and Death Imperium, but that's stupid. So I had these lying around for ages. I got Dark Imperium when it came out. In fact, I did a daft unboxing video on the channel, and I immediately sprayed the Death Guard white, because I wanted to do like really grungy, wash-based, like diseasey, awful armour colour, that kind of thing. I wanted to go all out, make it something really cool. However, as sometimes happens with Corax White, I don't know whether the stars were not in alignment, whether there is a shift in temperature of 0.1 of a centigrade, or whatever the hell happens to make that paint screw up horribly. I sprayed my Corax White, that sounds like a euphemism, all over the Death Guard, and it dried with the colour and texture of grey cement. I was so pissed off I couldn't even be bothered to strip them. I just threw them in a box and didn't look at them again, because I was like, what a waste of time that was. Recently, I decided I was going to do something with them, because I had some Hexwraith, I had some Nighthaunt, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do something a little bit different. So I did that. Now that is the Death Guard that had the horrible texture over the top of it, which admittedly has not entirely gone away, it's still a bit chalky. But all I did was just stick some of the blue on the bottom, green on the top, and then there's a bit of pink and purple in there for contrast. Very lazy, very quick, very cheap, but also kind of effective, and it's a little bit different, and I'd never really done an army like this before, so I thought I'd give it a go. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I'd need to strip them. I already needed to do that anyway, so who gave a shit? Now, you can kind of see from this model that actually we already do have at least a couple of paints that do what has been suggested, that shades the recesses and dries lighter on the raised areas. And of course, it does depend on how you apply it. With these guys, I was not particularly careful. Some of it has dried darker on the armour because I've let it pool, which was something that I wanted to do. But if you control it enough, it will, and it's especially obvious on the bolt, on the bolter, it will shade the recesses and dry lighter on the raised areas. And once you've done that, all you need to do is throw a little bit of dry brushing on if you don't intend to do anything else. Which, you probably should, but if you're a beginner starting out, if you're getting your first army on the go, you just want to paint and then play, you want something that's quick and easy. To be honest, a whole range of paints that do that sounds pretty damn good to me. I mean, that's the Lord of Contagion that's out of that box. He does have a pink dry brush over the top of him. Again, why not? If it didn't work, I'd just have to strip him anyway, so I just went for it. But already, it's not the most complicated paint job, right? And it took no time whatsoever. It was like one Sunday afternoon to paint the entire Death Guard half of Dark Imperium. But those two paints, those two technical paints that do that dry a bit darker in the recesses and leave the lighter, the raised areas lighter, that would be an incredible boon to new painters and to new players, because it would actually give a nice, easy option for doing this stuff. And let's face it, for certain armies, that kind of approach works really, really well. I mean, the Nighthaunt are an excellent example of this. Again, with the Nighthaunt side of Soul Wars, I wasn't massively bothered about getting into Age. I love the Nighthaunt stuff, and they will be painted properly at some point. I'll go through and I'll do all the details, I'll do all the weapons, and I'll, do whatever I want to make them finished. But for now, just a coat of Hexwraith Flame. The darker bits are darker, the raised bits are lighter. You could get away with a quick dry brush, and you'd be set, you'd be ready to go. If that's what this is, if it is essentially an extension of that technical range, where that kind of paint is renamed to the Contrast series or something, where you just take your model, whatever it's been base coated with, you just do a single coat, it shades the recesses, it leaves the raised areas lighter, and then you can get on with detail. That sounds like a genuine improvement to the range. Because the thing is, there is always going to be those of us who really want to hammer away at a paint scheme and get it exactly right. There are always going to be those of us who don't want to do that, who just want to get your base 3 colours down so that you can get on with playing. I'm one of those people who I much prefer doing the construction, and that's it. I prefer the construction of models to the painting. It's construction, playing, painting, in that order for me. I just don't really care that much. Now, there's stuff I'm prepared to make an effort for, and like the Emperor's Children, I'm absolutely making an effort for. For things like, this dude, that was simple, but I put a fair amount of effort into it because I wanted it to be stand out. I wanted it to look decent. But that was lazy. That was a lazy paint job, thanks to, essentially, those technical paints. That is just the Hexwraith Flame. All the green is Hexwraith Flame. That's all it is. All it was sprayed white and then washed with sepia and washed with purple and, Druchii Violet and Carroburg Crimson on the armour. That's all that was. If we have an entire range of paints that will allow you to take the effect of, the wings from that, or the entirety of the Nighthaunt army I've got, and just do a single coat to make it look shaded, make it look as though you've actually put a bit of time into it, or at least put a bit of care into it, and then you can get on with detail and then be finished. I'm absolutely all for that, and I can easily see them doing that. One of the things that is going to get people into the hobby is essentially ease of entry. Now, we are steadily getting to the point where it's getting increasingly easier to build armies that you essentially don't need much skill to put together. I know putting together minis is not the most complicated process in the world, but frankly, the option to have a Redemptor Dread, for instance, that just is in 12 pieces, and only one of them is tiny, that helps a lot. For a lot of people, that helps a lot. It's the same thing with the number of easy-to-build kits that Primaris have in general. You can get Intercessors, and you can get Reavers, and you can get Aggressors, all easy to build. At the moment, the easy-to-build stuff, or the monopose stuff, the stuff that is just not that complex to put together, that is increasing at a fairly steady rate, and in a way that means that if you have no idea what the fuck you're doing, you can get into this quite easy. The painting is where it's easy to fall down. The painting is one of those things where I think it's probably easy for a lot of people to get disheartened very quickly, because you will go and you'll try and find inspiration, you'll look at other people's work and you go, that looks amazing, how do I do that? And then you'll paint for the first time and go, oh, it looks shit. Because let's face it, if you're just throwing on a coat of, like, I don't know, lead belcher or what's a good example? Or corn red, there's a good example. You throw on a coat of corn red onto your berserkers, you're like, yeah, they're going to look exactly like they do in the box, this is going to be great. And then it dries and it's all flat, one colour. Every bit, the lighter raised areas, the darker recesses, they're not lighter or darker, they're all just one shade of red. That is going to invariably make quite a few people go, oh, what the hell do I do now? Like, how do I do this? How do you do it? They could say, oh, well, you just go to Warhammer TV, look at a tutorial, go onto YouTube, look stuff up. There are going to be people who don't want to do that. And there are frankly going to be people who are lazy as hell, like me, who for certain stuff will put a load of effort in, but for other stuff will just go, you know what, I just want to get it painted and get it done. And they'll want to make things like that. Now, if I had the option of doing this with, I don't know, a bunch of other colours, you would be amazed at how many armies I would end up owning on the basis that I could get them painted nice and quick. Not everything has to be a masterpiece, and if there is a series of paints, a range of paints, that take the same kind of formula as like Hexwraith and Nighthaunt, that just expands all across a bunch of colours, that just means you can slap it on and then off you go, all for that. And to be honest, it doesn't always have to be like a life's endeavour to get a model painted. I think Games Workshop recognises that. I think, honestly, with the increase in technical paints, Games Workshop is kind of cottoning on to the idea that it's nice to have painted armies, but it's not always possible to have a fully done, every model is a singular work of art, every single bit of your army has had, 100 hours of attention. It's not viable for a lot of people. It's not possible for a lot of people. And to be honest, when you get right down to it, if you cannot paint the stuff that you buy, and you cannot play with the stuff that you haven't painted, and you want to get into that side of the hobby, what is a good way to make sure people keep coming back for more models to paint? It's to make them easy to paint. And how do you make them easier to paint? Well, you create a paint where you can put a single coat on, it does the recesses, it leaves the raised areas dry, and all they have to do is just finish it off with a bit of detail here and there. It sounds like a fucking great idea. I really hope this turns out to be true. I hope that's what it is. It does sound a bit weird in a way when you think about it, because it is kind of like, well, if it dries and shades the recesses and then leaves the rest of it lighter, how does that work? But we don't know how it works. If you use Hexwraith sparingly, if you use it properly, if you chase it into the cracks, if you make sure it doesn't dry kind of globbed on in certain spaces, which, as I say, is what I've done intentionally so, then you already get that effect. You already get the recesses nice and dark, the raised areas nice and light, and you're ready to go with the dry brush and detailing, and you're done. I hope this is what it turns out to be, honestly, because at this point I would suggest that there are plenty of airbrushes to buy. There are plenty of brands to go for. There are plenty of God knows how many options throw up on Amazon if you want to get a really cheap airbrush. There's already ways that you can dip minis if you want to. There's plenty of methods of doing that and tutorials for doing that. But how many ranges are there where you can just stick the brush in the pot, wash the model, and you're miraculously kind of done for most of it? I can't think of many other paint ranges that have that kind of slant to it. And if Games Workshop are going to go after that, then that's a really good idea, because the more stuff people paint, the more models they buy, the more money Games Workshop makes, and the more likely people are to try out different schemes, different methods, different ways of doing stuff. Like, if you know that you can just get one of these pots and you can see what would have otherwise been a couple of hours of work appear straight off the bat, that sounds good to me. I mean, I'm making it sound like some sort of miracle paint, which obviously it won't be. There will be plenty of ways to do it better. There'll be plenty of ways to make it so that it's more personalised, so that it's more detailed. But for those people who aren't that fussed about that, for those people who just want to paint the army and get it done, this could actually be genuinely helpful if it turns out to be true. So yeah, if it is that, if it is essentially a whole range of like essentially technical paints renamed as contrast paints that are in a similar vein to Hexwraith and Nighthaunt, that sounds great to me, and I'm looking forward to seeing what it actually turns out to be, and I kind of hope that that's what it is. Let me know what you think of that in the comments down below, whether you're one of those people who really gets like deep into the painting process, or whether you're like me and you just get it done and out of the way, whether you would like to see that range expand so that there are more options for, well, not just new people, but just everyone in general. More options is never bad. Yeah, let me know what you think in the comments down below. In the meantime, feel free to click all the things, Patreon, video, subscribe, all of that stuff. Click it if you like, don't click it if you don't want to, and I will see you for the next one. Toodaloo.